Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back once again to Honest J. Nowak. So I've got to talk about garbage disposals. If you're familiar with garbage disposals, of course, with the flick of a switch, you'd be able to flush down anything, have it grinded to a pulp, and then just have it sent straight out to who knows where. Anything that can be disposed through a garbage disposal, such as fruits, vegetables, anything that can be easily broken down with just the use of the blades inside of the disposal unit, can actually be used to be put in there, and they will never be seen again afterwards. But I suppose that there's a lot of things about the garbage disposal that I have yet to learn about, but mainly why I'm talking about the garbage disposal here on Honest J. Nowak is because of the fact that people need to use water before they run the disposal. I mean, what's the actual purpose of that? The disposal works fine on its own. I really don't need to have water to try to help it out. It's not like that I'm trying to dispose a coconut through a garbage disposal, because that would end up in disaster for the most part. Of course, you try to put something sharp down there, like metal pieces or rocks, or something to a garbage disposal, then that would be something very dangerous at some point, because the projectiles would come flying out through the flap in the sinkhole, and then just, well, probably hit you in the eyes or face, and that would cause a really big problem. I really do feel like that water's just not necessary for whenever you run the garbage disposal, because mainly the disposals work just to dispose of certain things out there that we commonly use, like the cores of apples or anything else that we try to use that can easily be broken down on its own without having to resort to water. Of course, if you're trying to use something even harder down there, which is very unlikely because you'd most likely not end up putting hard things through a garbage disposal, then of course, depending on how the disposal itself works and what it can be used for, depending on what can actually go through the disposal as well, it probably would be necessary to use water, but for the majority of things, it's just soft things out there that can easily be broken down into really tiny fragments or juices. It can really be juiced up to a pulp, and you really don't need water for that part. Disposals work fine on their own. It probably is not like that they have to be cleaned off after every time, because it's not like you're using the disposal to cut up fresh fruit just to eat. That is actually where other tools in the kitchen would come in, but I'm mainly talking about how is water supposed to be necessary. Probably even worse than that is the fact that at one point when I ended up using the disposal without running water, was that I was told that using water whenever you run to the garbage disposal is a quote-unquote directive. Well, what the hell are we? We're not robots. We're human beings. We don't do directives. We do directions. Directives are something else. And yes, it's mainly a reference from WALL-E and the like, but I'm serious about that part. Who uses the term directive towards a human being? It doesn't make sense. I think just probably going out of my mind right now, because I just cannot believe someone would go out of their way to just use a term like that towards my own face. Just because I'm trying to do the right thing and just simply flush stuff down the garbage disposal, but it's seriously something that starts to get out of hand here. The fact that people would use the disposals on their own without the use of water just to break down certain things is fine enough, because depending on what you're using, depending on what you put down the disposal, it's going to break down on its own just fine. You don't need water for it. I probably wouldn't suggest that anyone else who would try to put harder stuff down there just as an excuse to run water before you use the disposal would be a reasonable idea, because it probably would cause damage to the blades in the disposal unit, so it's surely not recommended, but I mean, it's anyone's guess as to what can happen if the disposal can take it in or if it rejects it. I can't really be sure about the whole thing itself, but I'm just not sure about how people just all of a sudden want to explain to us how water and disposal itself probably seem to work, something like that, but it's really something out there that I really do not want to ignore at this point. So that's mainly why I'm bringing it up here on Honest J. Nowak. So I'm going to stop talking about that, and I feel like I'm going to have to move on anyway. So if you want to see more go down on my channel, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.